Ladies and gentlemen, I am Monty Hook and I'm in the studio in Bali today, joined by Mr. Mike V. Good to have you here, man. Hey, what do you think of the studio, bro?
Dude, I was telling you earlier on before we started recording, I literally feel like a little kid in here. And I'm looking at you like, oh my God, Monty's so cool. And stuff
I'm
like
getting
that.
embarrassed and shy.
And it's like so exciting, man, because I mean, the vision that you have like for this place is insane. And I'm just so excited that, you know, you're literally going to be like the sticky glue that gets all of these really epic people together.
Yeah.
Right. Which is weird because everyone here in Bali is like really cool, but they're kind of like doing their own thing and they're not collaborating. They're maybe collaborating when they go do their
on very certain things,
very little
but
things.
Not like as a joint collective kind of thing. Interesting insights, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I thought it would just be cool to build really beautiful studios where I could film and invite people from all around the world to come. And this is just a taste. We're obviously under construction now. Lighthouse coming soon in end of 2021. But yeah, I just wanted to build cool ass studios and have my own coffee machine. I drink coffee anytime I like.
Yeah. But normally it's like those people that fill their own need, right? Instead of like, oh, I need to find the product market fit and I need to do some research and what are the competitors doing? Like usually it's the ones that just focus on their own need and like having fun that out of nowhere for some reason.
And they get really passionate about it.
They're like more successful than someone that's like, for example, you take someone like Joe Rogan, starts a podcast, just loves it, makes $50 to $100 million a year. And then you have like the internet marketer, whereas like the background where I came from, where they're like, how can I find a niche and how can I make money from this?
Yeah, and it comes across, it can come across very forced and very inauthentic. And
it's extremely forced and extremely inauthentic.
Well, let's talk about that because I mean, you're in that space.
Yeah.
So, what are you known for, man? What are you known for?
Oh man, it like really depends on what year you're asking that question. Because like if you were my friend in college, I was known as the guy that was just supposed to become a dentist, right? So like no business background in my body or whatsoever. Here's like this Mike guy that's like in dental school or going to dental school. That was like 1 year, right? And then I had like my eBay days where I was just like making money selling on eBay. So I was known as the eBay guy. And I was selling on Amazon. So I became the Amazon guy. And then I started making money with Shopify. So then I became like the e-commerce guy. And then, I started making videos about it. So then I was known as a YouTube guy. And then that got too like niche down to like the making money online guy. So then I started a podcast and then I became the podcast guy, but then I got robbed. So like your house got robbed. Yeah, like literally all like the podcast.
So the podcast equipment got stolen.
All of it, dude. So I was just like, maybe I'm not the podcast guy. So then I became like the downward spiral. What am I gonna do with like the next business trajectory guy? And then COVID happened and I became like the business failure guy. Cause like which is really hard, right? When you make money in other things and you try a new project and your ego kind of gets caught to it and then you're failing when people think that you're like up here and you're like down here. Yeah. So then I became like the crazy what do I do with my life guy all of like 2020. Especially when like the lockdown happened, man. I got like super introspective and then went back to the spiritual guy, was the vegan guy, then the carnivore guy. I've just been a lot of dudes.
It sounds like you're just like experimenting with life, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, out of all of that, like, what do you think you're good at?
I think, because I've been writing this down a lot. Like, what is my core competency, right? Yeah. Like, I was looking a lot at Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, and I feel like most people, they want to be good at everything. Right. And if they don't know an answer, then they're like a little bit embarrassed. Right. But I was like listening to them. And whenever Charlie Munger doesn't know an answer, he would literally say in an interview, like, that's not my zone of genius. Like, I'm not fit to answer that. You got to ask someone else. So I started like really diving deep and thinking like, what is it that I'm good at? And like, it seems where like my little niche is video marketing to other people's products, not my own product. So like affiliate marketing. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of like after, we had all of those like really epic spiritual events that we've been through, and that's like where we met. That's where I realized kind of was like my zone to just stay there and to kind of like really help sell other people's products. And that's exactly how, like, dude, literally after that, that epic spiritual event, because there's like so many spiritual events here, that was like the insight. I doubled down on that. And now that's kind of like the big like money maker now, while I focus on, I guess, diving back deep into spirituality, which is why I've been seeing you a lot lately.
But we'll come back to that. But I mean, you're saying you're the video guy. You're pretty big on YouTube. YouTube's your preferred platform. Yeah. So do you feel like when you say you think you're good at selling other people's products? Because I mean, you have a big personality, right? And this is one of the reasons I like him. We've spent a little bit of time together at some of these events you're talking about. I don't really know you outside of that, but I've enjoyed your company.
Oh, you've been a blast.
I feel like
Grizzly.
I feel like that would resonate across in videos. And do you feel like that is like that's your thing? Like your personality has a way to connect with people?
Like I think so. Cause I don't know, man. It's like, it's always scary to let your real self like out. Right. But like, I don't know. I just guess how I was raised that I think I forgot the memo of like, don't be too crazy or whatever. So like, I tend to go more on the crazier side, but then like ultimately what it does, I don't know. It's like social media is kind of like an extension of who you are, right? If you network with people like in the events that we've been through, you're gonna kind of track people that resonate with you. I feel like the more you're able to just be yourself, warts and everything, as weird as you are, like for some reason, business will just do well. Like for example, right? Here's an example. I had a video go viral. It was top 3 ways to make $100 a day as a broke individual, right? And like, this is just a concept of, okay, here's this way of how people can make money. Here are all these other ways that people are talking about it. But how can I be just as authentic as possible with this? So everyone else was just a little bit quiet. This was like a couple of years ago. So people were afraid of sharing their ideas. And I literally go on this video. I'm wearing this. Have you ever been to the Kotal pub crawl?
No.
Like I used to have this like crazy hostel stint where I was just like having so much fun staying in hostels. It was like this really skimpy t-shirt that you would use at like a bar crawl. And here I am talking about like making money online, like looking completely homeless in my $200 a month Chiang Mai apartment, right? So there's like no luxury whatsoever when everyone else talking about making money online was like luxury. And like around that time, I had like crazy long armpit hair, right? Like the most ridiculous, like I got a Russian girlfriend now. So she's like, you have to shave that, right? No. But like before, dude, I just thought it was weird to like shave it, right? Like the idea of a man. So all else equal, how ridiculous that was. I didn't have like this nice studio. The couch looked super cheap, $200 a month, like super cheap Chiang Mai, Thailand apartment. That video ended up blowing up just because of how like different and real was. And if you literally look at the comments, it was like no one even really cared about what I actually talked about. They were just like, they're literally like, dude, your armpit, shave your armpit, shave your armpit. But I kid you not, it was weird, right? Because at first I felt insecure. I'm like, man, should I shave my armpits? All these people are saying it. They didn't care about the video. But then that one video started making $100 a day just from the ads that played on the video. And then I started realizing, I was like, should I listen to these people that are like these keyboard warriors that are just trying to like bring me down? Or should I literally just maybe double down and just go more crazier, deeper into that personality?
Grow your armpit
you know what I'm saying?
Longer.
I did, but then, I don't know. When you date a Russian woman, she's just like, okay, this is enough.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you've been into Amazon and different things, and you kind of started out by saying that, I mean, there's so much romanticism around entrepreneurship, right? And there's so much access to different things. And there's a lot of people saying, you can start an Amazon business and, within 3 months you can be making this amount of money and just follow the system. And, there's so much of that, right? You having been in that world, like, what do you really think about that? Because, I mean, like you said before, it's the businesses that are born out of a personal desire, a personal need, or some kind of experience where you can see the gap and you find something you're passionate about. Then you can, you're going to feel like you want to invest energy into that. And they're the things that usually end up being not just successful from perspective of financial, for financial success, but bring a lot of enjoyment. And then you can feel that in the brand and everything, right? But that seems very disconnected from a lot of the entrepreneur world now, which is this, anybody can start an e-commerce business and everybody can become a millionaire in 5 minutes, and most of it just makes me want to throw up in my mouth. How much of that is valid, do you think? Like, is it, like, what's your perspective on that now that you've kind of been in those worlds for a long time?
So the thing about so this is just kind of like the journey, right? Somebody completely broke, has student loan debt, mortgage, all of these things. They just want to make money, right? So at that point, what normally happens psychologically is they're like, okay, what is the fastest and easiest way to make money with lowest risk to actually make money? And then at the time, the best thing for me was like eBay dropshipping, because I was like, okay, I could just literally post things up on eBay for free and then sell them ship them from Walmart and only buy them after, right? So that was able to make me like $100 a day. But the extent of getting rich off of that was, I guess, like the limit, because the easier something is, the more competition will happen. And what happens is like over years, your profit margin goes down. Like I remember I was like profiting $2 to $3 per product. And just because it was a free way to make money, I think my profit margins went down to like 10 cents, 20 cents. And like, I remember I was like 19 years old and I was like pulling in 70 grand a month in revenue, only making $500 a month. But I had like so much travel rewards credit card points. So I was like, yo, and then I I was like, dude, I got to take this. And like, I spent 30 days in Vegas when I was like 22. I was like, dude, what am I going to do with all these travel rewards points? So that one was like, okay. But then you're constantly looking for the next thing. Amazon FBA was it, because that's what they preach a lot.
So, I mean, you could do really well in any of those things if you were really early. Like if you were like one of the early adopters. And then you become a teacher of those things, and that's how you can really.
And then you just find out that the digital space is more lucrative, right? Because, for example, with the physical product space, when I came back from Vegas, I had all these returns. I was like, okay, that's like a headache. I got an Amazon FBA because I was like, oh, it's more passive. But the thing about e-commerce, especially when you're dealing with like big business, is it like all your profits in an inventory, right? So the only way that you really make good money in Amazon is if you sell the business to give that headache to somebody else.
My buddy just sold his, actually Dan. He just sold his Amazon business for $5 million US.
Whoa,
he had 5 years of just making money, tipping it all into inventory. They did okay, like they paid themselves okay. But for a $5 million business, he wasn't getting rewarded for 5 years, that's for sure. And I think he's one of the lucky ones, not everyone's that lucky.
And now everything, it's like, I think a good rule for business is don't compete with Jeff Bezos and don't compete with China, right? And it seems like when you're in the Amazon business, now like China's just coming in and, like cutting out us as the middleman, right? So I don't know, Amazon was like pretty hard. And then you start seeing where like you're starting to see, okay, how are people actually making money, right? And when you look at them and you don't look at what they're saying, but you watch their feet to see what they're moving, it seems like most people that are the most successful ones are literally building an audience, asking them what it is that they want, and just finding or sourcing the thing that is that they want, right? Like for example, I remember when I went to this Mind Valley event in Croatia, right? And at this event, there was this super spiritual person. I think he was the guy that taught Doctor Strange and the cast exactly what to do that. Apparently that's like a real thing in the Marvel movies. We were talking about Marvel earlier. And he was like saying, write a long list of all of your values. So here I was just like, okay, freedom, love, connection, authenticity, like fun. And then on the right side, he was like, write all the ways you do to make money online. So I'm like, oh man, hashtag digital nomad, passive income. I'm like, okay, cool. And he was like saying, okay, all the ways that you're making money online that don't align with your values, stop doing them.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is crazy, but like, I'll try this out for like 30, 60 days. So that's eventually when I ended up coming home from Croatia. I was like, let me do this podcast thing. I don't know like how it's going to make money. I don't know where it's going to go. The first podcast completely bombed, right? But then the second podcast was Hanalei, right? For those that don't know, like she's like a prodigy. She's going to save the planet. 13 or 14
years old, and she's got a huge following.
Dude, that ended up blowing up. And then after that, I interviewed like my one mentor that makes like $1 million per month profit. And that one blew up. And then now I'm like, okay, like what do I do now? And then this is how I like fell into this model on accident, because now I built an audience on accident. Before I was known as like the armpit hairy guy that teaches people how to make $100 a day. And here are 2 podcasts, like literally within 2 videos, it just blew up.
Yeah.
So my mentor was like, they keep on DMing me on Instagram to sell them something. And I'm like, but we don't have anything to sell. And he's like, let's do a webinar, right? So I ended up promoting like a webinar where he was the one that did the selling for me. And I'm just like the guy that was like, how the hell did this happen? Dude, that was like the most insane webinar ever, because we went to his place. It was like really hot. We didn't have this nice studio here. So I literally was doing this webinar. I had a tub of ice like in a bowl, and I was like literally standing in it while I was like doing this webinar. We had like a little bit of cameras and videos, but it was like karaoke mics and whatnot. But dude, like we got, I think there was like 400 people on the webinar. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe this, crazy, this is awesome. And he did the selling. And like we had another buddy, Hanson, there who was like helping us with like the production and everything. And by the time that it closed, like I thought we made like $10,000 in that. But I think we were like 2 or 3 hours in, and I looked at him and he was just like, keep on going. And I'm like, okay, maybe we're doing really well, right? And I'm like, okay, it's I think 1 a.m. at this point, because we did it morning time or whatever, like US time. But by the time the conversation was done and he was like, okay, let's finish, we were on the call for like 4 or 5 hours. Dude, it was like 70 grand for that.
Yeah.
And then I went to the bathroom and I came back and I was like, did anything update? And he was like, yeah, we just made another 10 grand. And I was like, are you serious? And that was literally within 30 days of the intention of, let me start a podcast. And like what you were talking about, instead of looking for the idea, I just interviewed someone that I was passionate about. An audience came, they asked for a product. We didn't have a product. And then someone else sold it. You
created it out of the circumstances of what unfolded through what you were doing.
Dude, it was nuts, man. I was like,
no, it's really interesting because it kind of paints the picture of how different it can be for like entrepreneurship is it's just like this big giant fucking soup that like people think they've got it figured out. And I mean, I had my first business when I was eight years old. I've never been good in the digital stuff.
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm just old school. Maybe I'm just too fucking old. But I did okay. I did reasonably well, but coming into this, digital world and social media, I mean, I've done okay, but not, remarkably well. And, it's so interesting to me that people can come in, my ego has gotten in the way before and been like, I see people that have come in, they've been in business for 5 minutes and they're like seemingly doing really, really well. Yeah. And I've been doing it for 25 years and I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, screw those people.
But that's cool. But the thing that is different with me is that I could lose everything and I could build it up again very, very quickly. And the difference with my businesses is that I know they're sustainable. They're built with solid foundations. They're not around, short living trends.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge for people. And what I was hearing before, as you kind of talking through that, is when people are kind of scrambling and looking for the money makers. Yeah, there's merit in that. There's no question about that. But I think what that does is it gives you the tools. It gives you the tenacity. It gives you develop the character And then you just keep doing these things enough times. You just keep experimenting. You keep plugging away. You keep doing your thing. And eventually something will land. And then you can actually build something really, really solid off that. Yeah.
You know, it's like really interesting that you say that, you know, your business was more like the physical space and not the digital space. Like, dude, after
there was no digital.
Yeah. But it's like really interesting, you know, seeing you over the past couple of times, because I think like your secret superpower is, dude, I don't know what it is, man. It's like just who you are. Like people, you might not even feel this, but like people trust you and gravitate towards you, you know? Like we just met, I think like a couple times last year, but like there's something, I don't know what it is about you that like makes me just want to like trust you and work with you somehow, right?
Yeah.
And like you have this amazing ability where even if you're not good at like digital marketing, for some reason, you're attracting like a lot of like digital marketers in your life.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting insight. That has been a common theme, and interestingly, like it's been a thing with women like my whole life, right?
Yeah.
Women feel really comfortable to trust me and tell me everything. Like the space between us is very, very safe.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that same kind of thing. But yeah, I've my mind doesn't work in the way of looking like understanding that situation, like understanding my superpower and going, okay, yeah, people really, really, you know, trust me and they feel comfortable with me. And I think part of it is I get comments a lot that I'm very grounded, like I'm very secure. I don't know where the fuck that comes from because I'm not most of the time. But
I think it's a beard. I'm still growing mine. It's been like
27
it's
years.
been like 27 years, maybe one day.
But my mind doesn't try to run with that. It doesn't try to go, oh, okay, now let me think about how to turn that into a business. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
Because I think it's that part of me which the reason people trust me is because I'm not trying to get something out of them.
Yeah.
Right. If I was to try to flip that around and go, oh, okay, now this superpower, let me try to make money out of this. Let me build a marketing funnel and the Monty Trust thing, or let me sell you something.
Let me hook them.
Let me
Monty hook them.
let me sell you something. I would be undoing the superpower.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. Yeah. But it's okay for me because I don't feel like I need to be famous. I don't feel like I need to be this big. I'm doing this podcast because it's fucking cool and fun to me. Like I don't have a marketing funnel. I'm not trying to. I'm not running webinars. Maybe I will. I'll never say never. But you know, I mean, Lighthouse, what we're building here in Bali. Like you were saying before, it is going to be. It's called Lighthouse for a reason. It's going to be a beacon for the world's most meaningful messages, and it will be a place for the messengers. So, but I don't really think of that so much in, you know, like what am I going to get out of it? Like the financial terms of, you know, my mind doesn't really. It does with some things, but like not with that. Like,
dude, I think that's like amazing, man. Because like for example, what you just described remind me a lot of like one of my favorite books. I read it right when the lockdown first happened. Like, are you familiar with the Untethered Soul and Surrender Experiment?
I am, yeah. I haven't read the books, but I'm familiar with them.
The Surrender Experiment, man. That's like insane. This guy literally wanted to just go in the woods of like Florida and meditate, right? And like from that, he wasn't chasing the money at all, but he was just like surrendering to the things that life was happening. And then he ended up building like a Fortune 500 company, and it got sold to like WebMD for like $1 billion. And he never chased the money. He was just like, I like want to do what I love. Have to really care about people, do my best, like all of the things that seem very like obvious. But yet,
and it also seems counterintuitive to what we're taught about business.
It's like find your niche, capitalize on the gains.
And it's like, you know, kind of takes me back to how it was in the 80s. You know, it's just like everything was about making money and sell. But I think now the world is changing in terms of what people are craving, which is this: people don't want to have the hard sell anymore. People don't want that cheesy marketing. People want the authenticity. They want the hairy armpits. They want the real deal. And I think which I think is beautiful. I think it's a good sign for humanity that that's what we're craving. That we're demanding that more. And also I think we're demanding the way entrepreneurs show up in their business. You know, that the business actually makes a difference. It has an impact. It has a positive footprint rather than, you know, taking away from the world. So I think in that regard, we're moving in the right direction. Yeah,
it seems like business is moving towards like people getting paid for who they like naturally are. Right. It's just like an
Which is such a weird concept.
Right.
So
like just be yourself. We'll pay you.
Yeah.
You don't know how, but
because
like
we're so kind of indoctrinated into this world where we need to fit in and we need to try to be somebody in somebody else's model, and it's kind of like counterintuitive, which is why it's hard for people. I think it's actually really hard for people to be authentic, because when you're trying to be authentic, you're automatically not being authentic. Because you're trying.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. I felt that like with the podcast, because in the beginning it was like super authentic, right? I was like, oh, this is like awesome. Oh my God. Like and then money was like going up, right? But then I don't know what it was, like something shifted in my head where I was like, whoa, when I do this, I could make more money. So then I started doing more of that. But then like views started going down, income started going down, and then we got robbed. And then I was like, what is going on? It's like a woman, right? Like if you want to like, if you see someone really attractive at the bar and you're like breathing in her face and like, hey girl, like what's your name? Like marry me. Like she's gonna be like, right? But it's almost like you could
you just play it cool, like
play cool, be playful, like don't put them on a pedestal. It's like the more you put things on a pedestal in life, like money, success, relationships, goals, the harder it is to like get it. And if you chase it, you end up getting like water thrown in your face, a slap, or getting robbed or losing a bunch of money, you know?
Yeah, that's super interesting. So we've mentioned a couple of times about the events that we've that we've been to. You know, we've been in ceremonies, and we don't need to go into detail about that, but we've done breath work and stuff together. And so, like, do you consider yourself to be a spiritual guy? Is that why you're kind of pursuing that, or what makes you feel called to do that? Is it just part of the entrepreneurial journey for you?
So the reason why I'm doing it now is I realize that I only get into spirituality in the past when bad things happen, right?
It's a fixing mechanism.
Which is a horrible thing. Like, why should I meditate only when things are bad? Right? Why should I only like be grateful? Like I remember when everything was like falling down around me, like lockdown, freaking like losing a bunch of money, like worried about what my next pivot would be. And that's when I'm like, oh, you know, let me like reframe my mind. Let me write 10 things that I'm grateful for every single day, morning and night. Let me meditate for like 2 to 4 hours a day. Cause Dave, the guy that owns Istana, was like, dude, you got to meditate for 10 hours a day. I'm like, okay, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll try 2 or 4. I'm like, why is that the case? Right. So I think now I'm doing it more to just remind myself that I shouldn't stop the things that get me out of that funk hole. Because if I could continue doing that when things are good and like I'm happy and I'm healthy and like everything is good, then maybe there's like another level that I could reach, you know? So I'm using it more like a tool, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I mean, because you look at guys like Dave who meditate like however many hours a day. He's been doing it for the last 2 decades or whatever. It's like, I mean, that dude is solid, and
he like floats.
He's not just like, you know, like a monk. He has that kind of demeanor about him, but he's very successful. Like, he's like
34, 35.
He's a very successful entrepreneur. So yeah, no, I definitely relate, and I think that that's the journey for most people when you start on personal developments, because something is broken, you don't like it, and then you want to try to fix it. But it's a very mature awareness to kind of get to that point where it's not about the fixing. Because the thing that I've come to the conclusion with, having done a lot of plant medicine ceremonies in the jungles of Peru and in Bali, and I've done some, you know, some pretty deep stuff, is that the journey's never going to end. Like, I think in the early stages of the personal development, the spiritual development, you think that there's some place to arrive at. Like, even if you can intellectualize that you know, there's nowhere to get to, you still feel like when I do this, well, then I can, if I do this, then I can feel this and I can have this. Then I'll be fixed. But the mindset is still, that paradigm of needing to fix yourself is there. I think when you can get to the place where it's like, well, I don't really need to be fixed, but I'm going to be on this journey of healing forever.
Yeah.
Because you think that healing is like, you know, like a wound on the body. It's like, okay, well, it's bleeding now, and then 2 days later, it's not bleeding anymore. It's now healed. Well, no, you're just bleeding your whole fucking life.
Yeah.
It's a different...
It's a slow death. Like a slow death.
I mean, I know I'm not painting the picture of, you know, of much fun, but I think that that's the point, is when you can become at peace with the journey is forever.
Yeah.
Like this journey of healing, this journey of discovery, this journey of... because then you can stop making yourself wrong for things. You can stop judging yourself. You can realize in the moment that, oh, I said that stupid thing, and okay, well, that was hurtful, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it, because that's just going to make the situation worse. You know, I think that that's certainly been helpful in my journey to have peace with the idea that this is going to go on forever.
Yeah, man, I equate it a lot to like investing, right? Like in investing, you always want to have like an exit strategy. And if you don't have an exit strategy, like you're out of luck. But also like not just an exit strategy, but like the horizon for your investment, right? Like some people are throwing all their money into Bitcoin, but they don't have a horizon of investment of, okay, how long am I going to hold this? Because if it's a year when it goes down, that's bad investment. But if you hold it for, I don't know, 100 years, that could always be a good investment as long as like it's going up, right? But it's the exact same thing I think with like spirituality and personal development. People are like, okay, well, oh, my life sucks. Let me just like take 1 month to figure it out. And they have like a 1 month horizon of fixing themselves. And then they're fixed. Wow, they're healed.
Oh, they got a massive insight, and the job's done.
And then maybe they're good for like 3 to 4 to 5 months, and their life's good, relationships are good, business seems good, and then another bad things happen, and then you know they're just back at it again. They're kind of surprised about it, and then sometimes the hole is deeper than the initial one, and it's just like an entire life of like bad things happening, life is good. Bad things happening, and then you got to like fix yourself.
Every time you got to fix it. Every time
but because you're not like realizing that that's just like how life is, it gets depressing each time if you don't have that horizon of
because and then you think, well, I've done so much work, I've done so much personal development, I've watched so many Tony Robbins videos. I'm like, why don't I get it? Well, guess what? You're human.
Because that's life, right?
So I you know, that's why this idea of integrating and embodying these practices into your life every day, I know it doesn't sound like a very fun thing to regulate yourself. You know, it's like it doesn't sound very empowering to think that you've got to regulate yourself. But actually, that's pretty much what we have to do, right? So when you can do these practices of meditation, breath work, you know, whatever our rituals are every day, and we can just keep ourselves grounded as much as possible. And when these things arise, it's like it doesn't affect us as much, and we can deal with it more effectively. Like when something really bad happens, it's like we've got, it's so embodied in us and how to deal with it, that we don't have like that massive drop, you know? Yeah.
I'm like really curious how you do it, right? Because like, for example, you own like an awesome outsourcing company and stuff like that. And like, you're really good at just like outsourcing the work. Even like just talking to you earlier, you're like, yeah, you know, I'm going to go put someone in there to manage and do this, stuff like that. Because it's really interesting for me. Like when I start outsourcing things and I have more time to myself, my mind tends to just then worry about all the things that could go wrong. And then seeing if there's ways that I could mitigate the cost or like the downsides to fix it, right? And then I'm just now looking for all the negatives, and then now I'm like feeling like anxiety and like frustration. I remember the other day, like just something as simple as like having ADD to make sure that like the titles are good, because I don't want to publish a video if the titles don't make any sense. How do you do it and find that balance when your work is literally like getting a project, outsourcing it? Now you have all this free time to then worry about things. How do you not worry as much? Or are you just really good at hiding it?
No, I think it's a really interesting question. And what I'm reflecting on is the journey of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
So usually what happens is when you're on your own and you start outsourcing things, or you put in an assistant, or you hire a few people to get stuff done for you, you still really got to be across that. Like you've really got to have your eyes on it, make sure the titles are right. I do that now. Sometimes I'm calling these guys out on stuff that I see. But you can get really wrapped up in exactly how it needs to be, right? Then what happens is, like, where I think that real ability to move yourself from the situations and not carry that burden it comes through reaching another level of entrepreneurship where you can develop leaders. And then when you can just focus on developing the leaders, and then the leaders are responsible for the people under here, well, then you're playing a different game. Two things happen there. One is you're not caught up in the minutia. You're not caught up in the really small stuff, right? Your focus now has to be on leadership. So you're focused on just developing the managers or whatever, right? And then just that alone, you have to take yourself to another level. So to develop leadership in other people, you're also got to be a pretty high level leader yourself. You've got to really develop that. And that also gives you the tools to remove yourself. But there's been times when, like one of my business partners, she's based in Australia. And when we first started the outsourcing company, she was always, I'm glad that I had her as a partner, because she was always calling me on stuff. She was like, Monty, get yourself out of this situation. This is not the situation for you to be in. Fuck off. And I'm like, okay, righto.
Like, what was the specific situation?
Well, like, especially around managing people.
Yeah.
Like, this is not your job to manage this. Like, why are you in this? And that ability to trust what's happening in the business, trust the leaders, and even trust the staff, that's the greatest asset. Now, are things going to break? Are the titles going to be wrong sometimes? Are things going to be incorrect? Sure. But if you're always going to get caught in that place, you can never get to that place. So you've got to kind of get through that point where you kind of break through, where you can train people well enough that they can handle everything effectively. And I think the reason a lot of people don't reach that is because as you're growing a business, you make money, and then all of a sudden you've got to take money out of your pocket and spend it on somebody else, which is not an easy thing to do. So if you've got the choice to pay somebody $2,000 a month or $10,000 a month, well, usually you're going to choose the $2,000. But actually what you need is the $10,000 person to take you to that next level, where then the numbers creep up again. But this is the game of business. Like I was saying before, we were talking about the inventory thing. That's just how business is. If you don't like the idea of scaling, reinvesting money to get to a point where you can reap the rewards, well, you're not in the right game. You may as well go get another job or keep your business really, really small. So, there's a few kind of points. There's a few kinds of businesses that you could build where you could have the greatest level of freedom. And one of them is building a really big business, like with 50 staff, and you can put a CEO in place and you can remove yourself out, right? So that's one goal that you could have. Or you could have, like still a small business with, say, 10 people, and you've got smart enough people in there doing most everything that you can have some level of freedom. Could you remove yourself fully out of that? No. But if you want that real freedom business, you got to build something massive.
Yeah.
And that's not that easy, which is why most people don't do it.
Yeah, it's like been really interesting, right? Because it's kind of like when you get rewarded for bad habits, you don't tend to change them, right? Like, so for example, and I'm seeing this is the difference between, talking to you and then talking to like some of the friends that I know that went and made money like really, really fast. Yeah. Is even though you did it in the physical space and you've been doing it for like your entire life since you were 8, it was like you learned all of the like lessons needed every year, and you got all of the mistakes and you were able to learn that, right? Like, for example, I remember one business I built on Shopify, right? It went like $0 to $1.5 million in 12 months.
1.5 revenue.
So, yeah, in revenue, so like 30% profit margins.
Yeah.
But still at that time, it was just like a lot of money for me. And I was just like, I'm the shit, right? And like, I developed all these bad habits leading up to that when the business ended up not becoming sustainable, right? I had this, how do you say, assumption, or this thing in my head where I thought that the way to make money was exactly what I did in this thing.
Yeah.
But, and because of that, like my life has been making a bunch of money in short term.
Yeah.
And then like getting greedy, investing in an idea, and then losing it all, and just like repeating it like over and over again, right? But it's really interesting, right? Because one of the reasons why I started getting in all of the like events that we've been meeting at is now it's like the first time in my life that like, even though things are growing fast, I'm thinking of it like with those like slow lessons of like hiring, you know, people to manage, for example, the YouTube ads, hiring somebody and their team to run like, you know, the websites and the blogs, right? And to just focus on my core competency. Yeah. But it's like really cool seeing like what you did, man, because like to start from 8 all the way up to, you know, like where you are right now, even though it was like not as fast as like some people, you have like all these lessons. Slow. No, but think about it, you have all these lessons that all it takes is you to then come in with someone who has like a really like cool idea and setup, and you just like filled them with all of your experience, and then now the money can just be fast, but it won't just be fast, it'll be sustainable. Right. And that's like for example, when I look at you, I was like, oh fuck, like I'm like secretly envious because now I'm just learning, okay, build this up.
Because of the beard?
Yeah, the beard. That's the main thing. But it's so interesting, man. Like, and when you get it to the point, like what thoughts normally just go on in the rest of your day, right? Like you wake up.
No, the way I explain it is when I tell people, like I get the question all the time, oh, well, what do you do? Okay, well, I'm building a project here. We're going to have, I don't know, probably 40 staff there. I've got an outsourcing company. We've got a couple of hundred people there. I'm on the board of 4 companies. I run a podcast. And people are like, wow, you're so busy. I'm like, I work 4 hours a day. And the rest of the day is, to me, is still working.
Yeah.
But I'm working on myself. So there's the outer work, which is the business, and then there's the inner work. That to me is, that's the evolution of what my work is. So the work to me is waking up early, doing some movement. It's like going to the beach, walking the dog. It's doing some breath work. It's doing some meditation. It's doing the ice bath. It's being in the gym. That to me, the way I look at that is that's my work. And I think the reason why that works for me is because I also have a tendency to, I've always been a hustler. And I like being busy. So the thought of doing nothing and, you know, like just relaxing, and it's like that wouldn't work in my mind. I know it's just my mind. It's not real. But by talking about it as that being the evolution of my work, it still allows me to feel like I've had a very successful day. Yeah. You know, like when you have that paradigm of you got to work 12 hours a day and you got to hustle, the thought of spending 5 hours a day surfing, doing meditation, doing all these things, you like your head's just going to go, no, I can't do that. Like that's being lazy. Well, to me, that's the critical work for me, because if I don't do that, I don't have the ability to do what I need to in the 4 or 5 hours that I'm working.
Yeah, that's something that I'm just coming to grasp recently, because like now the main business model is just me ranking for as like much like keywords as possible, and then investing all that money into like ads for some ads person to manage it, and then building like the SEO traffic for like the blog, and getting someone else to manage it, right? So I think for me, it's like Sunday, I'll literally make 7 videos. Wednesday, I'll make 7 videos. Friday, I make 7 videos. That would be like the biggest movement forward, because all the marketing end is like automated in the back end. And then literally Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are all just like, how can I just like get back to like the present and not be too crazy, because it's like in those relaxations that like the ideas come. So like, dude, I started jujitsu, man. It's like really fun. I just came back from it. Jujitsu is like really interesting because it's kind of like, it's very revealing to all of your weaknesses as a man, not just physically, but like for example, if you're trying to get somebody in an armbar and you're only getting for that, there could be like this move right here, but because you're so blindsided to this one move in your tunnel vision, like you end up getting hurt, right? It's the exact same thing. Normally those people that do that in business is they're going after one opportunity when another opportunity is hitting them in the face, but they're too blinded by exactly what they want, you know?
Yep.
But that just like transitions to, like I said, those works on Sunday, Wednesday, Friday when I make all these videos and stuff.
Yeah. Cool, man. Rabbit hole. What the fuck do you think is going on in the world in 2020 and 21? Do you buy into any of these, do you buy into the conspiracy theories? Do you it's very common for people in Bali to probably think some of the things that I think.
Yeah.
I'm outspoken about, I don't think we need a vaccine for coronavirus. And I think a lot of what's happened in the world is planned, and the way governments are dealing with the situation is suppressing people, and it's actually not good for humans. What's your take on everything that's happening in the world?
I think it's really difficult to put my finger on it, because when you think, like, for example, one thing is right, you'll realize that the source of the information you got it from has some type of agenda of their own, right? Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like evil, like one agenda, like for example, some guy that's preaching the carnivore diet, right? Well, he might have like a carnivore supplement line that would just increase his business. So he's like more motivated. Yeah. So it's just been really interesting because like behind every, for example, news station that talk about what's going on, their agenda, if you take away Corona and what's happening, is just simply, how can we get the most clicks and eyeballs, because that's what's going to make us the most money. Yeah. So sometimes they'll just like sensationalize some things just because that's what's going to make them the most money. Like if the conspiracy is true or not, the thing that is true is all these media companies are making a bunch of money just by people's fear. Yeah. Now in terms of like what's going on though, dude, I don't know what to believe, man. I went down the rabbit hole of like looking at like David Icke or Icky or whatever his name is. And like, I was like deep into that, like got into a really dark place in my mind, like fuck, the world is fucked and stuff like that. But then, you hear some other people that talk about like vaccines and how like people are trying to, find where you are at all times and whatnot. Dude, it's just really weird, dude. I try not to like worry about things that I cannot control. Yeah. Like what's your take on that?
It's very easy to buy into, and I think that's the issue, because I think one of the difference between, I think what happens is this, regardless of which side of the fence you sit on, usually people take their idea, they run with it, and they're in a state of fear, because even if you believe in the vaccine, well, the reason you're taking the vaccine is because you're fearful of what's going on. Yeah. If you don't want to take the vaccine, it's because you're fearful of the agenda of the vaccine makers. So whichever side of the fence you're on, you can very easily buy into the fear. Yeah. So when I hear all these things, I do think that there are puppet masters. There are people who have a lot of power over industries, media, politics, governments, everything. And they actually have an agenda, and they have the ability to steer humanity and societies in a direction that suits them and not humanity and societies. I think that that's happening. To what degree, I don't really know. But I also am not necessarily scared by that. Mm-hmm. So when I listen to people like David Icke, or when I hear things about, the Great Reset and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, you can get lost in it and get, you can buy into the fear. Yeah. Right. But I actually listen to those things, and I kind of feel very optimistic for what's possible for humanity, because I'm very, very sure that we are moving through something. I've been through enough pain in my life to realize that it's those moments which, like, you can't have the really great life unless you've had those times of pain. Mm-hmm. And I think humanity is just going through some kind of purging or cleansing, and there's a lot of truths coming out. There's a lot of things bubbling to the surface, which maybe have been, hidden for 50 years, 100 years, however long. And those things are coming to the surface. So if you look at the surface, it's like it's a scary world. But if you look at what's behind that, it's like, well, that's going to end up being good because we need that to happen. We need to move through this pain. And I'm not saying there aren't real things happening in the world and don't want to diminish what people are actually going through. But I think there's a bigger picture. And that's where I feel, and maybe it's just my intuition. Maybe I'm psychic. I don't know. But I feel very positive and optimistic about that. So even there's some really fucking scary things coming to the surface, it's like, well, okay, well, that's shocking. But my mind always knows. I know, my heart knows what's on the other side.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that time horizon of investment. Like you could look at one thing and it could be a bad investment or a good investment. Like for example, like when something bad happens to an individual's life, right? It's bad for that moment. And then if they could go over that, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years.
If they could have the hindsight now.
Yeah. Then they're like, oh my God, that's the best thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that I guess I'm like fearful about is if you look at, for example, 1,000 years in the past and 1,000 years in the future, of course, like we'll eventually, whatever the negativity is going on right now, we'll get through it and we'll get stronger. My only concern is like, how long will the pain be, right?
Yeah.
Because even though on the other side, it'll be like really good. Like you look back in the past, sometimes it could be like 5 years. Like I think the Spanish flu was like 3 to 5 years for things to happen. But like if things go really bad and say like the agenda like ends up happening, which would like suck, right? And that's a pain point, like what you defined it. How many years would it take for like the good stuff to start happening, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, my thought on that is my life, the quality of my life is not going to be dependent on those trends. Whether it's here, whether it's there, the quality of how I show up each day is what determines the quality of my life. And ultimately I have power. And if I'm going to buy into that, well, then I'm going to have a shit day. Shit day turns into a shit week, turns into a shit month, year, life. So, I believe I have full control over my experience. But it's also why I live here in Bali, and that's my choice. And I can say that us living here in Bali, I think we're quite lucky because we've been disconnected from a lot of the nonsense that has existed in Australia, UK, US, USA, some of these countries, because there has been a lot of nonsense, right? And I feel very blessed that I'm disconnected from that. But I also know that my soul chose that because I don't want any part of that. Like it is a bit of a bubble here, but my soul chose that.
But it's like really interesting in your line of work is it's like, even though it's like a little bubble here and the conversations that we have here is just literally confined to an island, with what you're building, like with Lighthouse and everything, is you're literally getting people that have these strong, how do you say, things that they want to share, but you're creating like an incubator and an environment where it allows more people to start thinking exactly like how people here think, Like it's very hard, like it's very easy for someone to go to the cafe or to a breathwork event and meet somebody that they have similar values with, right? It's very easy. But for like Becky from city from Idaho has these beliefs. She talks to all of her friends. They don't have the beliefs. She talks to her parents, like all of her loved ones. They don't have beliefs. Becky could have had potential to live a good life, inspire people. She's immediately shut down by just her environment, right? If she had the potential to maybe come to Bali, like do ecstatic dancing a little bit, maybe do some breathwork, maybe she could, break through it. But odds are Becky's probably just going to get a job in accounting, marry somebody that she doesn't enjoy, and end up dying, never being fulfilled. Like, no, it's sad, right? But because of everything what you're doing, you're combining everything, you're allowing people that have these voices to share and to be a beacon for these people.
Yep.
I think what happens, same way how you creating this business will naturally bring all of like the most amazing people in Bali directly to you, where you don't have to individually meet them, but they'll all find you. You're also giving everybody in the world the ability to hear this voice, like literally to be a beacon. So like it's being transmitted from Bali, but like you could literally pull the people that have similar values from all around the world. And I think that's what's powerful.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, here's a community. When you have a community, you have a value, and you have leadership, then you have a direction to where then you could take, I guess, humanity, right?
Yeah.
So you might not know this, but you're essentially kind of like John Connor in like the Terminator, you know? I don't even know if that's like the right, like
the right analogy.
Right analogy, but you're kind of like that guy that is like leading the resistance almost, you know?
That's interesting. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways I have always been pretty rebellious against a lot of things that are going on. I haven't really thought of it so much in those terms, but maybe it's just because I think I'm pretty humble. Yeah.
Well, like, imagine if you were like, "Oh, this is my vision." Yeah, like
and like the phrase that I always say is, "It's not my job to change the world. It's not your job to change the world. It's my job to create the next ripple." Yeah. And I think this is where people get caught up. Like people get caught up, and I'm going to change the world.
Like I am the ripple.
I'm going to be God, and I'm going to be known as this. I'm going to be that. It's like, no, just create ripples, help other people. But the way my business mind works is, there's always the conversation around business coaches, and then there's the business coaches. My mind is already like 7 steps past that. Like, how do I create an ecosystem that supports the coaches, like, and everybody serving them? Like, that's the way my mind works. I'm not going to play where they're playing. I'm going to basically create the world that they are playing in. Yeah. That's the way my mind works.
It's like, dude, it's one of the most valuable things too. It's like the biggest money makers are platforms, right? Because like, for example, someone in Amazon FBA could compete with someone with Amazon FBA, but Jeff Bezos is just chilling because they're in his sandbox. Yeah. You're like creating the sandbox for these people to come in because I mean, they want like high quality, like video production with like very good prices and whatnot, and to have their ability to share the message to match their branding, dude, they're going to have to go through.
Well, and the thing with Lighthouse is, I mean, there's studios all around the world, but they're not very inspiring environments. Like we've got studio overlooking the rice fields. Place is going to be designed beautifully. Like the studio is going to be amazing. Yeah, the equipment's going to be good. You can find that anywhere in the world. But for people to be able to come to Bali for a week and create content, and they have a holiday, stay here, use the studios, and it costs them the same as if they did it in Australia or in Idaho. Yeah. And
talking to you, Becky.
But without the inspiring environment, without the holiday, without all the, for people to be able to come here for 2 weeks and have a holiday and have a really good time creating the content, and it costs them the same as just hiring the studios in Australia and then paying a fortune for post-production or whatever. I think that's I think we've got a real opportunity. I've said before, I think the world needs a little bit of Bali, and this is what you were saying before, is like, if people could experience what we experience here, then their eyes would open up to all sorts of new possibilities. So how do we bring Bali to the rest of the world?
It's really interesting. Like, one of the reasons why I'm like excited about like this cool project that you have here is like we were talking at the event about fractals, right? About like what happens on a smaller scale happens on a bigger scale and whatnot. Like, if you look at, particles, right? Like the smallest like grain of atom in our bodies, the faster they move, the more likely they are to have like a chemical reaction with like another atom or whatever, right? And I think that's the unique thing that you have here, because not only is it like a beautiful location, like what you said, but essentially the people that are going to show up, there's higher chances and higher velocities of people meeting with each other. And I think the power comes in those intersections between those people, right?
Yeah.
Because the space is just facilitating the space. But if there's, like, for example, in the event, if we had a bunch of like people from Old Man's at that event, Istana is like beautiful, right? Brian was like awesome, but it's going to be like,
it's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, the people, I think.
Old Man's is a bar here. It's an amazing place, by the way. If you want to drink beers and listen to a live band, but not an ideal place for it.
But like, I think the secret here is like, you have like an ideal location, beautiful place, but you also have like inspiring people that have never maybe even met. Now, kind of like meeting up in this smaller space compared to like all of Bali.
Yeah. And
there's like more chances for the intersections that happen. And it's in those intersections to like magic happen. Yeah. Right. Like, I don't know, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Man. And you know, and this I understand. Like the saying I always say is 1 + 1 = 11. You know, like you take one really powerful person, there's only so much they can do. And then there's another powerful person doing their own thing. Yeah. You bring those two powerful people together, what's possible is exponential. Yeah. So, yeah. Dude, this has been awesome. I've got one final question for you, but before we do that, how do people find you? Instagram?
MikeVestil.com.
Yep.
Yeah, just go there.
Go there.
Yeah.
And check him out on YouTube. Check out his Instagram. Follow him. I appreciate your authenticity, man, being real. And I know you're going, you're going to go far. Because I mean, at your age, what, 28?
27 and a half.
27. When you're 27 and you have to say the half, like I would never say 43 and a half.
Did you got it, man? Women love it. They're like, oh, you're so cute.
But yeah, I mean, it's very inspiring to see the effort that you put into your own personal development and yeah, keep experimenting. So I got one final question for you, man. One final question, and that is, if you had the one-time superpower of mental telepathy, and you could share a message with all 7.8 billion people on the planet, whatever that might be, what would that message be? One short, sharp, beautiful message for all of humanity. Deep question, I know. I get a lot of sighs at this point.
That's a really interesting question. So literally within me thinking it, the entire world, there's a lot of responsibility, man.
Yes,
I might say something stupid and it could just bring everything down.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. I don't think there's a correct answer. You know, there's no right answer. It's just what's potent. It's just what's potent for you.
Okay. You get a lot of people stumped.
I've had a few.
I think if more people realized exactly what they could do when they didn't let their own self-judgments stop them, and everyone tapped into their zone of genius sooner.
Rather than following the model of what everyone's been told.
Like, I think if every single person in the world became solution orientated and started their own businesses, I think the world would just be a better place. So, but that would be really bad for your outsourcing company if everyone started.
I'd be happy for that. Yeah, and there's also in that answer, there's an element of, you know, which is what's kind of shining through here is to be real, you know, and just be okay with yourself. And like you said, take away the self-judgment, and what are you left with? You know, you're left with, you know, you being able to express what's right, and that's where you have your full power. You know, when you meet people that are like full power, it's like they just figured out a way to be themselves.
Oh, I want to change my answer. I got it. Ready for this? Study philosophy.
Yeah.
That's just it. You know, like not all the new stuff that you see, but like old things. Like I've been looking at like Stoicism, Lao Tzu, Nietzsche, right? They're like some really smart people. And if it has survived the past thousands of years, like it kind of weeded out all the bad books, right? Right now there's like all these books. It's like, oh man, like but it's just, if we look at the grand scheme of 10,000 years in the future, a lot of these books won't exist. But the books that have existed and have given wisdom to so many people why should we not spend a good amount of time studying those works, you know?
Yeah.
So that'd be the biggest thing. Just study philosophy, study like some of the ancient texts. I know it sounds weird. I know they speak in weird English. But dude, like some of the insights from that, it's like all the stuff we're getting right now is just watered down, you know?
Yeah. Or they're with agendas.
Yeah. Just buy my book, right?
Yeah. Awesome, man. Mike V, thank you so much. We'll make sure everybody's got the links to go check you out and check out your blog. The blog.
That's it.
That's it. All right. We'll send people there. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time back down the rabbit hole.